cork, the thick bark of the cork oak tree is a remarkable material. It is tough, elastic, buoyant, and fire resistant, and suitable for a wide range of purposes. It has also been used for millennia. The ancient Egyptians sealed their coffins with cork, where the ancient Greeks and Romans used it for anything from beehives or sundials. And the cork oak itself is an extraordinary tree. Its bark grows up to 20 centimeters in thickness, insulating the tree like a coat wrapped around the trunk and the branches, and keeping the inside at a constant 20 degrees all year round. Developed most probably as a defense against the forest fires. The bark of the cork oak has a particular cellular structure with about 40 million cells per cubic centimeter. That technology has never succeeded in replicating. The cells are filled with air, which is why cork is so buoyant. It also has an elasticity. That means you can squish it and watch it spring back to its original size and shape when you release the pressure. Cork oaks grew in a number of Mediterranean countries, including Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece, and Morocco. They flourish in warm, sunny climates where there is a minimum of 400 millimeters of rain per year and not more than 800 millimeters. Like grapevines, the tree thrive in poor soil, putting down deep roots in search of moisture and nutrients. Southern Portugal region meets all of these requirements, which explains why, and by the early 20th century, this region had become the world's largest producer of cork, and white dates account for roughly half of all cork production around the world. Most cork forests are family-owned. Many of these family businesses, and indeed many of the trees themselves, are around 200 years old. Cork production is above all exercise in patents from the planting of cork sapling into the first harvest takes 25 years, and a gap of approximately a decade must separate harvest from an individual tree, and for top quality cork is necessary to wait a further 15 or 20 years. You even have to wait for the right kind of summer's day to harvest cork. If the bark is stripped on a day when it's too cold or when the air is damp, the tree will be damaged. Cork harvesting is a very specialized profession. No mechanical means of stripping cork bark has been invented, so the job is done by teams of highly skilled workers. First, they make vertical cuts on the bark using small sharp axe. Then lever it away in pieces as large as they can manage. The most skillful cork strippers prize away a semi-cellular husk that runs the length of the trunk from just above ground level to the first branches. It is then dried on the ground for about 4 months before being taken to factories where it is boiled to kill any insects that must remain in the cork. Over 60% of cork then goes on to the made in traditional bottle stoppers, with most of the remainder being used in the construction trade. Cork board and cork tiles are ideal for thermal and acoustic insulation where granules of cork are used in the manufacture of concrete. Recent years have seen the end of virtual monopoly of cork as the material for bottle stoppers due to concerns about the effects it may have on the contents of the bottle. This is caused by a chemical compound called 2,4,6 trichlorosilane, which forms through the interaction of plants, phenols, colorants, and model of the tiniest concentrations, a little adds 3 or 4 parts to a trillion. It can spoil the taste of the products contained in the bottle. The result has been a gradual, yet steady move first towards plastic stoppers and more recently to aluminum screw caps. These substitutes are cheaper to manufacture and, in the case of screw caps, more convenient for the user. The classical cork stopper does have several advantages. However, firstly, its traditional image is more in keeping with that of the type of high quality goods with which it has long been associated. Secondly, and very importantly, cork is a sustainable product that can be recycled without difficulty. Moreover, cocoa forests are a resource which supports a local biodiversity and prevent desertification in the regions where they are planted. So, given the current concerns about the environmental issues, the future of this ancient material once again looks promising. Collecting must be one of the most varied of human activities, and it is one that many of us psychologists find fascinating. Many forms of collecting have been designated with a technical name. Ecotophilis collects teddy bears. Philatelists collects postage stamps, and dactylologist collects postcards. Hundreds or even thousands of postcards, chocolates, wrappers, or whatever take time, energy, and money that could surely be put to much more productive use. And yet there are millions of collectors around the world. Why do they do it? There are the people who collect because they want to make money. This could be called instrumental reason for collecting, that is, collecting as a means to end. They will look for the antiques that they can buy cheaply and expect to be able to sell at a profit. But there may well be a psychological element to buying cheaper and selling dear can give the collector a sense of triumph. And selling online is so easy. More and more people are joining in. Manufacturers like to develop their social life, attending meetings of a group of collectors and exchanging information on terms. And this is a variant on joining a bridge club or a gym, and similarly brings them into contact with like-minded people. Another motive for collecting is the desire to find something special or a particular example of a collected item, such as the early recording by a particular singer. Some may spend their whole lives in a hunt for this. Psychologically, this can give a purpose to a life that otherwise feels empty. And there is a danger, though, that if the individual is either lucky enough to find what they are looking for, rather than celebrating in their success, they may feel empty. Now that's their goal, then that's the job of them has done. If you think about collecting postage stamps, another potential reason for it, or perhaps a result of collecting, it is educational value. Educational value. Stamp collecting opens a window to other countries and to their plants, animals, or famous people shown on their stamps. Similarly, in the 19th century, many collectors amassed fossils, animals, and plants from around the globe, and their collections provided a vast amount of information about the natural world. Without those collections, our understanding would be greatly inferior to what it is in the past, and nowadays too, though to a lesser extent, a popular form of collecting, particularly among boys and men, was transporting. In this method involved trying to see every locomotive of a particular type using published data that identifies each one and the tackling of each engine and its thing in train transporters exchange information. This is often by mobile phones, so they can work out where to go to see a particular engine at a bread product. Many practitioners of the hobby become very knowledgeable about the railway operations or the technical specifications of different engine types. Similarly, people who collect stores may go beyond simply enlarging their collection and develop interest in the way that stores are made or the materials that are used. These have changed over the centuries from the wood that were standard in 15th century Europe through the wax and porcelain in later centuries to the plastics of today's dolls. All collectors must be inspired to study how those reflect notions of what children like or ought to like. Not all collectors are interested in learning from their hobby, so what we must call a psychological reason for collecting is the need for a sense of control, perhaps as a way of dealing with insecurity. Stamp collectors, for instance, arrange their stamps in albums, using variety organizing their collection according to certain commonplace principles, and perhaps by country in alphabetical order, or grouping stamps by what they depict. People, birds, maps, and so on. One reason, conscious or not, for what someone chooses to collect is to show the characters individualism, and someone who decides to collect something as unexpected as dog colors, for instance, may be convinced in their belief that they must be interesting in themselves, and believe it is or not. There is at least one dog color museum in existence, and its group also our personal collection. Of course, all hobbies give pleasure, but the common factor in collecting is usually passion. in pleasure is putting is far too melodic. More than most other hobbies, collecting can be totally engrossing and can give a strong sense of personal fulfillment to non-collectors. It may appear eccentric if humans or if a harmless way of spending time, but potentially collecting has a lot going for it. I would found an institution where any person can find its instruction in any subject. That's what the founders' motto for Colorado University, and it seems as characterization of the different university. Also in the USA, where I can currently teach philosophy, students can prepare for a career in resource management, engineering, interior design, accounting, and music, law, enforcement, you name it. And also, what the founders of those two institutions have thought of a course called erosion for profit. I can you note, we have it on the books and under graduates who have met the academic requirements can sign up for the course in our program in fair science. Naturally, the course is intended for prospective erosion investigators who can learn all the tricks of their trade for detecting whether a file was deliberately set, discovering who did it, and establishing a chain of evidence for effective prosecution in a court of law. But wouldn't this also be a perfect cause for prospective erosionists to sign up for? My point is not to criticize academic programs in fair science, and they are highly welcome as part of the increasing professionalization of this and many other occupations. However, it's not unknown for a firefighter to touch a building. This example suggests how dishonest and illegal behavior with the help of higher education can creep into every aspect of public and business life. I realized this is new when I was invented to speak before a class in marketing, which is another of our degree programs. The regular instructor is a colleague who appreciate the kind of ethical perspective I can bring as a philosopher. There are endless ways I could have approached this assignment, as I took my cue from the title of the principle. After all, a subject matter can have principles in the sense of being codified, having rules, as with football or chess, without being principled in the sense of being ethical. Many other students immediately assumed that's that the answer to my question about the marketing principle was obvious. No, just look at the ways in which everything under the sun has been marketed. Obviously, it need not be done in the principled ethical fashion. If that's obvious, I make the suggestion which may sound downright crazy in light of the evidence. Thus, perhaps marketing is by definition principled. My inspiration for this judgment is the philosopher Ielts, who argued that any body of knowledge consists of an end, a purpose, and a means. Let's apply both the terms means and end to marketing. The students have signed up for a course in order to learn how to market efficiently, but towards end, there seem to be two main attitudes towards that question. Why is the answer is obvious. The purpose of marketing is to sell things and to make money. The other attitude is that the purpose of marketing is irrelevant. Each person can choose their program and course with his expertise as such. My proposal, which I believe would also be kept, is that neither of these attitudes captures the significance of the end to the means for marketing a field of knowledge or a professional endeavor is defined by both the means and the end. Hence, both deserve scrutiny. The students need to study both how to achieve X and also what X is. It is at this point that a reason for profit becomes supremely irrelevant. That course is presumably about means how to detect and prosecute criminal activity. It is therefore assumed that the end is good in the ethical sense. When I ask science students to articulate the end or purpose of their field, they eventually generalize to something like the safety and the welfare of the society, which seems right as we have seen in some land could use the various knowledge of means to achieve a much less noble end, such as personal profit via destructive, dangerous, reckless activity, we would not call the firefighting. We have a separate word for it. Arousing. Similarly, if you employ the principles of marketing in an unprincipled way, you will not be doing marketing. We have another term for it, fraud. Katz gives the example of a doctor and a prisoner who use the identical knowledge to achieve the divergent ends. We would say that one is practicing medicine, the other murder. Two things distinguish food production from all other productive activities. First, every single person needs food each day and has a right to it. And second, it is totally dependent on nature. These two unique aspects, one political, the other nature, make food production highly valuable and different from any other business. At the same time, cultural values are highly entrenched in food and agricultural systems worldwide. Farmers everywhere face major risks, including extreme weather, long-term climate change, and the price of volatility in inputs and the product market. However, smallholder farmers in developing countries must, in addition, deal with adverse environments, both natural in terms of soil equality, reinforced etc., and human in terms of infrastructure, financial systems, market knowledge, and technology. A counterintuitively huge is prevalent among many smallholder farmers in the developing world. Participants in the online debates argue that our biggest challenge to address the underlying causes of the agricultural system's inability to ensure sufficient food for all, and they identified as drivers of this problem of dependency on fossil fuels and unsupportive government policies. On the question of mitigating the risk farmers face, most specialists called for greater state intervention. In his essay, K.F. Losey, president of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, argued that governments can significantly reduce risk for farmers by providing basic services like roads to get products, produce more efficiently to markets, or water and food storage facilities to reduce losses. Sophia Matthew, a senior advisor to the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy, suggested that the procurement and holding of stocks by governments can also have mitigate wild swings in food prices by alleviating the uncertainties about market supply. Chairman Finn, Director General of the International Food Policy Research Institute, held up social safety nets and public welfare programs in Brazil and Mexico as vulnerable ways to address poverty among families and reduce their vulnerability to agriculture shocks. However, some commentators responded that cash transfers to poor families do not necessarily translate into increased food security, and these programs do not always strengthen food production or raise incomes regarding and state subsidies. For agriculture, Rokia Kleber, executive director of Bangladesh, Liu Sanha commented in her essay that this have not compensated for the stranglehold exercised by private traders. In fact, studies show that 60% of beneficiaries of subsidies are not poor, but rich landowners and non-farmer traders. Murphy and Fan argued that profit risk management tools like private insecure commodity futures markets and rural finance can help small-scale producers mitigate risk and allow for investments in improvements capital warrant, and that's a financial support schemes often encourage the adoption of high input agricultural practices, which in the medium term may rise production costs beyond the value of their harvest. Matthew noted that when futures markets become excessively that they can contribute finance side, financial side. They can contribute to short-term price volatility, which increases farmers and food insecurity. In many participants and commentators emphasize that a greater transparency in markets is needed to mitigate the impacts of volatility and make evident whether adequate stocks and supplies are available. Others contended that agribusinesses companies should be held responsible for paying for negative side effects. Many essayists mentioned climate change and its consequences for small-scale agriculture. Fan explained that in addition to reducing crop yields, climate change increases the magnitude and the frequency of extreme weather events, which increase smallholder vulnerability. They grew unpredictability of weather patterns increases farmers' difficulty in managing weather-related risks. According to this author, one solution would be to develop crop of varieties that are more resilient to new climate trends and extreme weather patterns. Accordingly, Parmali, a co-founder and executive director of the ETC group, suggested that if we are to survive climate change, we must adapt policies that let peanuts diversify the plants and animal species and varieties breeds that make up our menus. Some participating authors and commentators argued in favor of community-based and autonomous risk management strategies through collective action groups, cooperatives, or producers groups. Such groups enhance market opportunities for small-scale producers, reduce marketing costs, and synchronize buying and selling with seasonal price conditions. According to Murphy, collective action offers an important way for farmers to strengthen their political and economic bargaining power and to reduce their business risks. One commentator, Jian Tang, warned that collective action does not come as a free good. It takes time, efforts, and money to organize, build trust, and to experiment. Others, like Marceau and Marceau, suggested that in order to apply what we already know, all stakeholders, including business, government, scientists, and civil society, must work together, starting at the beginning of our value chain. Some participants explained that market support price volatility is often worsened by the presence of intermediary parties who, taking advantage of farmers' vulnerability, dictate price. One commentator suggested farmers can gain greater control over prices and minimize price volatility by selling directly to consumers. Similarly, some founder and advisor to the Institutes of Research and Education. India was the community-supported agriculture where consumers invest in local farmers by subscription and guarantee producers a fair price. With a risk-sharing model was more attention. Direct food distribution systems not only encourage small-scale agriculture but also give consumers more control over the food they consume. She wrote. When the U.S. explorer and academic Bingham arrived in South America in 1911, he was ready for what was to be the greatest achievements of his life: the exploration of the remote hinterland to the west of Cusco, the old capital of the Inca Empire in the Andes mountains of Peru. His goal was to locate the remains of the city called Viticus, the last capital of the Inca civilization. And Cusco lies on the high plateau and elevation of more than 3,000 meters. And Benham's plan was to descend from this plateau along the valley of the Umbrella River, which takes a circulation routes down to the Amazon and passes through an area of dramatic canyons and mountain ranges. When Behance and his team set off down on the umbrella in in late July, they had an advantage over travelers who had preceded them. A track had recently been blasted down the valley canal to enable rubber to be brought up by molars from the jungle. Almost all previous travelers had left the river and taken a high pass across the mountains to rejoin the river lower down, thereby cutting a substantial color, but also therefore never passing through the area around. On 24 July, they were a few days into the descent of the valley, and the day began slowly, with Bingham trying to arrange sufficient molars for the last days of the attack. His companions showed low interest in accompanying him up the nearby hill to see some ruins that a local farmer, Michael, had told them about. The night before, the morning was dull and damp, and Benham also seems to have been less than keen on the prospects of climbing the hill. In his book, Lost City of the Incas, he relates that he made the ascent without having the latest expectation that he would find anything at the top. Benham wrote about the approach in vivid style in his book. First, as the climbs up the hill, he describes the ever-present possibility of deadly slips, capable of making considerable springs when its pursuit of their prey. Not that he senses any. And then there's a sense of mountain discovery as he comes across great sweeps of terracotta, and then a monster followed by monumental staircases, and finally the grand ceremonial buildings of Michael Picu. It seems like an unbelievable dream. The sights had me spellbound, he wrote. We should remember, however, the lost city of the Incas is a work of Helices, not writing until 1948. Many years after his journey, his journal entitled enters his journal enters entries of the time its general entries of their time reveal a much more gradual appreciation of his achievements. He spends the afternoon at the ruins, noting down the dimensions of some of the buildings, then descended and rejoined his companions to whom he seems to have said little about his discovery. At this stage, Beckham didn't realize the importance of the sites, nor did he realize what use he could make of the discovery. However, soon after returning occurred to him that he could make a name for himself from this discovery. When he came to write the National Geographic magazine, an article that broke the history to the world in April 1913. He knew he had to produce a big idea. He wondered whether it could have been the birthplace of the very first Inca, Manco the Great, and whether it could also have been Ielts chronicles described as the last city of the Incas. This term referred to Bamba, the settlements where the Incas had fled from Spanish invaders in the 1530s. Beckham made desperate attempts to prove this belief for nearly 40 years. Certainly, his version of the sites as both the beginning and end of the Inca civilization were a magnificent one is inaccurate. We now knew that the actually lies 65 kilometers away in the depths of the jungle. One question that has perplexed visitors, historians, and archaeologists alike ever since Beckham is whether such seems to have been abandoned before the Spanish conquest. There are no references to it by any of the Spanish chroniclers, and if they had known of its existence so close to the castle, they would certainly have come in search of gold. Have come in search of gold. In search of gold, an idea which has gained wide acceptance over the past few years is that Machu Picchu was a Maya country as is built by any Inca imperial to escape the cold winters of Castle, where the elite could enjoy monumental architecture and spectacular views Furthermore, the particular architecture of suggests that it was constructed at the time of the greatest of all the interests the emperor by custom descendants built other similar estates for their own use, and so would have been abandoned after his death some 50 years before the Spanish conquest. According to the latest figures, the majority of the world population is now bilingual or multilingual, having grown up speaking into more languages. In the past, such children were considered to be at a disadvantage compared with their monolingual peers over the past few decades. However, technological advances have allowed researchers to look more deeply at how bilingualism interacts with and changes to cognitive and neurological systems, thereby identifying several clear benefits of being bilingual. Research shows that when a bilingual person uses one language, the other is active at the same time. When we hear a word, we don't hear the entire word at all. Entire word all at once. The sounds arrive in sequential order long before the word is finished. The brain's language system begins to guess what that word might be. If you hear "can," you will likely activate words like candy and candle as well, at least during the earliest stage of word regulation. For bilingual people, this activation is not limited to a single language. Auditory inputs activate corresponding in words regardless of the language to which they belong. Some of the most compelling evidence for this phenomenon, called language co-activation, comes from starting its moments. A Russian English bilingual answer to pick up a market from a set of objects would look more at a stamp than someone who doesn't know Russian, because the Russian word for stamp, marker, sound like the English word or he or she heard. Marker is in cases like this, language co-activation occurs because when the listener could map onto words in either language. Having to deal with this persistence linguistic competition, it can result in difficulties. However, for instance, learning more than one language can cause speakers to name picture more slowly and can increase activity of the tongue states. When you can almost but not quite bring a word to mind. As a result, the constant judging of two languages creates a lead to control how much a person accesses a language at any given time. For this reason, bilingual people often perform better to tasks that require conflict management in their classic group's task. People see a word and are asked to name the color of the word font. When the color and the word match, for example, the word red printed in red, people correctly name the color more quickly than when the color and the word don't match. For example, the word red printed in blue. This occurs because the word is red and its font color blue conflicts. Bilingual people often excel at tasks such as this, which tap into their ability to ignore competing perceptual information and focus on the relevant aspects of their input. Bilinguals are also better at switching between two tasks. For example, when bilinguals have to switch from categorizing objects by color, red or green, to characterizing them by shape, circle, or triangle, or they do some more quickly than monolingual people, reflecting better cognitive control when having to make rapid changes of strategy. It also seems that the neurological roots of the bilingual advantage extend to brain areas more traditionally associated with sensory processing. When monolingual and bilingual adolescents listen into simple speech sounds without any intervening in background noise. They show highly similar brain stem responses when researchers play the same sound to both groups in the presence of background noise. However, the bilingual listeners' neural response is considerably larger, reflecting better encoding in their sounds, a fundamental frequency feature of sound closely related to pitch perception. Such improvements in cognitive and sensory processing may help a bilingual person to process information in their environment, and help explain why bilingual adults acquire a third language better than monolingual adults master a second language. This advantage may be rooted in the skill of focusing on information about the new language while reducing interference from the language they already know. Research also indicates that bilingual experience may help to keep their cognitive mechanism sharp by recruiting alternate brain networks to compensate for those that become damaged during aging. Older bilinguals enjoy improved memory relative to monolingual people, which can lead to real-world health benefits. In a study of over 200 patients with disease, degenerative brain disease, bilingual patients with reported showing initial symptoms of their disease an average of 5 years later than monolingual patients. In the follow-up study, researchers compared the brains of bilingual and monolingual patients and matched on their severity of symptoms. Surprisingly, the bilingual brains had more physical signs of disease than their monolingual counterparts. Even though their outward behavior and abilities were the same, if their brain is an engine, bilingualism may help it to go further on the same amounts of fuel. Furthermore, the benefits associated with bilingual experience seem to start very early. In one study, researchers saw 7-month-old babies grew up in monolingual or bilingual homes. That's when they heard a tackling sound. Puppet appeared on one side of the screen. Halfway through their study, their pupils began appearing on the opposite side for the screen. In order to get a reward, the infants have to adjust the rule they had learned. Only the bilingual babies were able to successfully learn the new role. That's for very young children as well as for older people. Navigating a monolingual environment imparts advantages that transfer far beyond language. Forests of spanning in Katy or cover much of the uneven lava plains that separates the interior of the island of Sibir from the Pacific Ocean with its five distinct volcanoes. The island resembles a nuclear landscape, owning the thick vegetation and the skirts of the often cloud-covered peak of several nature offers respite. Sometimes after the birth, around 5 million years ago, the island was colonized by one or more turtles from mainland South America. As these ancestral turtles settled on the individual islands, their different populations adapted to their unique environments, giving rise to at least 14 different subspecies. Island life are great with them in their absence of significant predators. They grew to become the largest and longest living turtles on the planet, weighing in more than 400 kilograms, occasionally exceeding 1.8 meters in length, and living for more than a century before human arrival. The archipelago turtles numbered in the hundreds of thousands from the 17th century onwards. Took a few on board for food, but the arrival of whaling ships in the 1790s, and so this exploitation grew relatively immobile and capable of surviving for months without food or water. The turtles were taken on board this ship. These ships could to act as food supplies during long ocean passages. Sometimes their bodies were processed into high-grade oil. In total, an estimated 200,000 animals were taken from the archipelago before the 20th century. This historical exploitation was the when settlers came to the islands, they hunted the turtles and destroyed their habitat. To clear land for agriculture, they also introduced alien species, ranging from cattle, pigs, goats, rats, and dogs to plants and ants. Their prey on their eggs and young turtles or damage or destroy their habitat. Today, only 11 of the original subspecies survive. And of this, survival and highly endangered. In 1989, work began on the turtles breeding center just outside the town of Puerto Villania. Cyber decided to protecting the islands and turtles populations. The center's captive breeding program proved to be extremely successful, and it eventually had to deal with an overpopulation problem. The problem was also pricing. The problem was also a pricing one, and captive bred turtles and can't be reintroduced into the wild until they are at least 5 years old and weigh at least 4.5 kilograms, at which point their size and their hardened shells are sufficient to protect them from predators. But if they wait too long after this point, the turtles eventually become too large to transport. For years, repatriation efforts were carried out in small numbers, with their turtles carried on their backs of men over weeks long, like along narrow trails. But in November 2010, in the environmentalist and the national park license of Officer Godfrey in Maryland, a visited private motor yacht. Captain and helicopter pilot gathered around a table in a small cafe in Puerto on the island of Cruz to work out some more ambitious introduction. The aim was to use a helicopter to move 300 of their breeding centers turtles to various locations, including to Sierra Nigeria. This unprecedented efforts were made possible by the owners of the 67-meter wide cloud, who provided the national park with free use of their helicopter and its experienced pilots, as well as the logistical support of their giant. Its captain and crew ordinarily in air ambulance. The yacht's helicopters has a rear double door and a large internal space that's were suited for cargo. Also, a custom creator was designed to hold up to 33 turtles with a total weight of about 150 kilograms. This weight, together with that of the few pilots and the 4 crew, project the helicopter's maximum payload, and there were times when it was clearly right on the edge of the helicopter's capabilities. During a period of 3 days, a group of volunteers from the breeding center worked around the clock to prepare the young turtles for transport. Meanwhile, park wardens dropped off ahead of time in remote locations, cleared landing sites within the thick brush, cutting, and lava rocks. Upon their release, their juvenile turtles quickly spread out over their ancestral territory, investigating the new surroundings and feeding on their vegetation. Eventually, one tiny turtles came across a fully grown giants who had been lumbering around the island for around 100 years, and their two stood side by side, a powerful symbol of the regeneration of an ancient species. While many diseases that affect humans have been eradicated due to improvements in vaccination and their availability of healthcare, there are still areas around the world where certain health issues are more prevalent. In a world that is far more globalized than ever before, people came into contact with one another through travel and living closer and closer to each other. As a result, superviruses and other infections resistant to antibiotics are becoming more and more common. Geography can often play a very large role in the health concerns of certain populations. For instance, depending on where you live, you will not have the same health care concerns as someone who lives in a different geographical region. Perhaps one of the most obvious examples of this idea is malaria-prone areas, which are usually tropical regions that foster a warm and damp environments in which the mosquitoes that can give people this disease can include malaria is much less of the problem in high altitude deserts. For instance, in some countries, geographical factors influence the health and well-being of the population in very obvious ways. In many large cities, the wind is not strong enough to clear the air of the massive amounts of smoke and pollution that cause asthma, lung problems, eyesight issues, and more in the people who live there. Part of the problem is, of course, the massive number of the cars being driven, in addition to factories that run on coal power. The rapid industrialization of some countries in recent years has also led to the cutting down of forests to allow for the expansion of big cities, which makes it ever harder to fight the pollution with the fresh air that is produced by plants. It is in situations like this that the field of Earth geography comes into its own. It is an increasingly important area of study in the world where diseases like polio are emerging with respiratory diseases continue to spread, and the malaria-prone areas are still fighting to find a better cure. Earth geography is the combination of, on the one hand, knowledge regarding geography and the methods used to analyze and interpret geographical information, and on the other, the study of health disease and the healthcare practices around the world. The aim of the hybrid science is to create solutions for common geography-based health problems where people will always be prone to illness. The study of how geography affects our health could lead to the eradication of certain illnesses and the prevention of others in the future. By understanding why and how we get sick, we can change the way we treat illness and disease specific to certain geographical locations. The geography of disease and your health analyze the frequency with which certain diseases appear in different parts of the world and overlays the data with the geography of the region and to see if there could be a correlation between the two. Health geographers also study factors that could make certain individuals or population more likely to be taken ill with a specific health concern or disease as compared with the population of another area. Health geographers in this field are usually trained as healthcare workers and have an understanding of basic epidemiology as it relates to the spread of diseases among the population. researchers studied the interactions between humans and their environment, and thus could lead to illness, such as asthma in place with high levels of pollution, and work to create a clear way of categorizing illnesses, diseases, and epidemics into local and global scales. Earth geographers can map the spread of illnesses and attempt to identify the reasons behind an increase or decrease in illnesses as they work to find a way to halt the further spread or re-emergence of diseases in vulnerable populations. The second category of health geography is the geography of healthcare provision. This group studies the availability or lack thereof of healthcare resources to individuals and populations around the world. In both developed and developing nations, there is often a very large discrepancy between the options available to people in different social classes, income brackets, and levels of education. Individuals working in the area of geography or healthcare provision attempt to assess the levels of healthcare in the area. For instance, it may be very difficult for people to get medical attention because there is a mountain between their village and their nearest hospital. These researchers are on the frontier of making recommendations regarding policy to international organizations, local governments, bodies, and others. The field of health geography is often overlooked, but it constitutes a huge area of lead in the field of geography and healthcare. If we can understand how geography affects our health, no matter where in the world we were located, we can better trace disease, prevent illness, and keep people safe and well. Why does music make us feel? On the one hand, music is a purely abstract art form, devoid of language or explicit ideas, and yet, even though music says a little, it still manages to touch us deeply. When listening to our favorite songs, our body betrays all the symptoms of emotional arousal. The pupils in our eyes dilate, our pulse and the blood pressure rise. The electrical conductance of our skin is lowered, and the cerebellum and the brain region are associated with bodily movements and becomes strangely inactive. Blood is even redirected to the muscles in our legs. In other words, since stress acts as our biological roots. A recent paper in Nature Neuroscience by a research team in Montreal, Canada, marks an important step in revealing in the process under plannings of the potent pleasurable stimulants, that is music. Although the study involves plenty of fancy technology, including functional magnetic resonance imaging (fMRI) and light-based postulance emission and thermography (PET) scanning. The experiment itself was rather straightforward. After screening 217 individuals who responded to advertisements requesting people who experience chills to instrumental music. The scientists narrowed down the subjects 4 to 10, and then they then asked the subject to bring in their playlist of favorite songs. Virtually every genre was represented, from techno to tango, and played them the music with well. Every music well. The brain activity was monitored because the scientists were combining methodologies, PTE and fMRI. They were able to obtain an impressively exact and detailed portrait music in the brain. The first thing they discovered is the music triggers the production of polymer chemical with a key role in setting people's moods by the neurons. Nerve cells in both our dorsal and ventral regions of the brain, as these two regions. Two regions have long been linked with the experience of pleasure. This finding isn't particularly surprising. What is rather more significant is the finding that the dopamine neurons in the caudate region of the brain involved in learning stimulus response associations, and in anticipating in food and other reward stimuli, were with their most active around 15 seconds before the participants' favorite moments in the music. The researchers call this the anticipatory phase, and argue that the purpose of this activity is to help us predict the arrival of our favorite paths. The question, of course, is was all of these dopamine neurons are up to? Why are they so active in the period preceding in the acoustic climax? After all, we typically associate surges of dopamine with pleasure with the preceding of actual rewards, and yes, this cluster of cells is most active when the chills have yet to arrive, when the melodic pattern is still unresolved. One way to answer the question is to look at the music and notice the neurons, and where music can often seem, at least to the outsider, like a labyrinth of intricate patterns. It turns out that the most important part of every song, similar, is when the patterns break down, or when the sound becomes unpredictable. If the music is too obvious, it is annoyingly boring, like an alarm clock. Numerous studies, after all, have demonstrated that the dopamine neurons quickly adapt to predictable rewards. Even if we know what's going to happen next, then we don't get excited. This is why composers often introduce key notes in the beginning of a song, spend most of the rest of the piece in the studios avoidance of the pattern, and then finally repeated this only at the end. the longer we are delayed, and the pattern we expect, the greater the emotional release when the pattern returns, safe and sound. To demonstrate this psychological principle, the musicologist Leonard Meyer, in his classic book Emotion and Meaning in Music, 1956, analyzed the fifth movement of Beethoven's string quartets in C-sharp minor of 131. Meyer wanted to show how music is defined by its flotation with both no submission to over expectations or of order near dissected 15 measures above of the masterpiece, showing how Beethoven and begins with the clear statements of rhythmic and harmonic pattern and the ingenious tolerance carefully hold of repeating it. What Beethoven does instead is suggest the variations of the pattern. He wants to preserve an element of uncertainty in his music, making our brains being for the one thought of refuse to give us. Beethoven saved the thought for the end. According to the Meyer, this is the suspenseful attention of music arising out of our unfulfilled expectations. That is the source of the music's feeling, and where earlier theories of music focus on the way a sound can refer to the real world of images and experiences. It is collective meaning. Mayors argued that the emotions we find in music come from the unfolding events of the music itself. This embedded means arises from the patterns the symptom invokes and the ignores. It is this uncertainty that triggers the search of deployment in the caudate. As we struggle to figure out what will happen next, we can predict some of the notes, but we can't predict them all, and that is what keeps us listening, waiting expectantly for our reward, or for the pattern to be completed. From our earliest origins, man has been making use of glass. Historians have discovered that a type of natural glass or obsidian formed in places such as the mouth of the volcano as a result of the intense heat of an eruption. Melting sand were first used as tip of spares. Archaeologists have even found evidence of man-made glass which dates back to 4000 BC. It took the form of glass used for coating in stone beads. It was not until 1500 BC, however, that the first hollow glass container was made by covering in a sanded core with a layer of molten glass. Glass blowing became the most common way to make glass containers from the 1st century BC. The glass made during this time was highly colored due to the impurities of the raw materials. In the 1st century AD, methods of creating colorless glass were developed, which were then intended. By the addition of coloring materials, the secrets of glass making was taken across Europe. by the Romans during this century. However, they guarded the skills and technology required to make the glass very closely, and it was lost until the empire collapsed in 476 AD. As glass making knowledge became widespread throughout Europe and the Middle East. From the 10th century onwards, the Valentines gained a reputation for technical skill and artistic ability in the making of glass bottles, and many of the city's craftsmen left Italy to set up glassworks throughout Europe. A major milestone in the history of glass occurred with the invention of lead crystal glass by the English glass manufacturer George Ravenscroft. An attempt to counter the effects of clouding that sometimes occurred in blown glass by introducing lead to the raw materials used in their process. The new glass they created was softer and easier to decorate and had a higher refractive index, adding to its brilliance and beauty, and is invaluable to the optical industry. It is thanks to Ravenscroft's invention that the optical lenses, astronomical telescopes, microscopes, and the like become possible. In Britain, the modern glass industry only really started the development of the repeal of the Excise Acts in 1845. Before that time, heavy taxes had been placed on the amount of glass melt in the glass house and were lifted continuously from 1745 to 1845, and Joseph Paxton's crystal placed at London's Great Exhibition of 1851 marked the beginning of glass as the material used in the building industry. This revolutionary new building encouraged the use of glass in public, domestic, and horticultural architecture. Glass manufacturing techniques also improved with the advancements of science and the developments of better technology. From 1887 onward, glass making developed from traditional mouth blowing into a semi-automatic process. After factory owner H.M. Esley introduced a machine capable of producing 200 bottles per hour in Castleford, Yorkshire, England, more than 3 times quicker than in previous production method. Then in 1907, the first fully automated machine was developed in the USA by Michael Owens, founder of the Owens Bottle Machine Company. Later, the major manufacturers honestly used and installed in its factory owner's invention, and could produce an impressive 2,500 bottles per hour. Other developments followed rapidly, but it was not until the First World War when Britain became cut off from essential glass suppliers that glass became part of the scientific sector. Previous to this, glass had been seen as a craft rather than a process science. Today, glass making is a big business. It has become a modern, high-tech industry in operation in the flourishing in competitive global markets where quality, design, and service levels are critical to maintaining market share. Modern glass plants are capable of making millions of glass containers a day in many different colors, with green, brown, and clear remaining the most popular. Few of us can imagine modern life without glass. Its features in almost every aspect of our lives, in our homes, our cars, and whenever we sit down to eat or drink. Glass packaging is used for many products. Many beverages are sold in glass, as numerous foodstuffs, as well as medicines and cosmetics. Glass is an ideal material for recycling, and with growing consumer concern for green issues, glass bottles and jars are becoming ever more popular. Glass recycling is good news for the environment. It saves used glass containers being sent to landfill, as less energy is needed to melt recycled glass than to melt down raw materials. This also saves fuel and production costs. Recycling also reduces the need for raw materials to be quarried, thus saving precious resources. There is a poem written around 598 AD which describes hunting a mysterious animal called a living. But what was it? What was it? Nothing seemed to fit. Near 2006, when an animal born dating from around the same period was found in the Kensey Cave in northern England. Until this discovery, the Lennox, a larger spotted cat with tissued ears, was presumed to have died out in Britain at least 6,000 years ago, before the inhabitants of this island took up farming. But the 2006 find, together with three others in Yorkshire and Scotland, is compelling evidence that the Nix and the mysterious lion were in fact one and the same animal. If this is so, it would bring forward the tassel Ielts estimates extinction dates by roughly 5,000 years. However, this is not quite the lasting glimpse of the animal in British culture. 9th century stone cross from the east of eggshells alongside the leaf deer, boar, and orange pursued by the mountain hunter speculated cats with tasselled ears was also for the animals' backside of having on away with time. We could be certain that the lake's stubble tail is unmistakable, but ever without this key feature, it's hard to see what else the creature could have been. The lake is now becoming the totemic animal of the movement that is transforming British environmentalists. Rewaddling means that mass restoration of damaged ecosystem involves letting traits return to a place that have been denuded, allowing parts of the seabed to recover from trawling and degrading, in permitting rivers to flow freely again. Above all, it means bringing back missing species. One of the most striking infants of modern ecology is that ecosystem without large predators behave in completely different ways from those that retain them. And some of them drive dynamic process resonates through the whole food chain, creating niches for hundreds of species that might otherwise struggle to survive. The killer turn out to be bringers of life. Such findings present a big challenge to British conservation, which has often selected arbitrary assemblages of plants and animals, and sought as great efforts and expense to prevent them from changing. It has tried to preserve the living world as if it is a jar or pickles, letting nothing in and nothing out, keeping nature in a state of rapid development. Developments about ecosystems are not merely collections of species. They are also the dynamic and ever-shifting relations between them, and this dynamism of the alternative plants unmatched predators as see the potential is ever greater by protecting larger areas from commercial fishing. We could once more say what 18th century literature describes vast shores of fish being chased by fin and sperm whales within sight of the English shore. This policy will also greatly boost catches in their surrounding seas. This is the fishing industry's insistence on scoring in every inch of seabed, leaving no breeding reserves. It could not be more damaging to its own interest. Rewiling is a rare example of an environmental movement in which a campaigners articulate what they are for rather than only what they are against. One of the reasons why the enthusiasm for rewiling is spreading so quickly in Britain is that it helps to create a more inspiring version that the green movement usually promotes of following us, and the world will be slightly less awful than it would otherwise have been. In the lakes, it presents no threat to human beings. This is no lone instance of one preying on people. There is no lone instance of one preying on people. These are a specialist predator of raw deer, a species that has exploited in Britain in recent decades, holding back by intensive bossing attempts to re-establish forests. Were also vehicle of secret deer and exotic species that is almost impossible for human beings to control, and these hives are impenetrable plantations of young trees, and the attempts to reintroduce this predator marries well with the aim of greening marries well with the aim of bringing forest life to parts of our bare and barren hamlets. Lakes requires deep cover and as much presents little risk to sheep and other livestock, which are supposed as a condition of farm subsidies to be kept out of the woods. One on a recent trip to the Carolina Mountains, I heard several conservations lists suggest that the lakes could be reintroduced there within 20 years if trees return to the bare hills as well in Britain, and the big cats could soon follow. There is nothing extraordinary about these proposals seen from the perspective of anywhere else in Europe. The lakes has now been reintroduced to the Jura Mountains, the Alps, the Vosges in eastern and France, and the Alpes Mountains in Germany, and has re-established itself in many more places. The European population had tripled since 1950 to roughly 10,000, as well as wolves, bears, beavers, boar, bison, moose, and many other species. The news has been able to spread as far farming has left the hills, and the people discovered that it is more lucrative to product charismatic wildlife than to hunt it. Tourists will pay for the chance to see it. That scale remodeling is happening almost everywhere, except Britain. Here, attitudes are just beginning to change. Conservationists are starting to accept that the old preservation jar model is failing even on its own terms. Already, projects such as Trees for Life in the Highlands provide a hint of what must be coming. An organization is being set up that will seek to catalyze the remodeling of land and sea across Britain. Its aim being to reintroduce that rarest of species to British ecosystem. Hope. After a number of serious failures of governments, that is how they are managed at the highest level, companies in Britain as well as elsewhere should consider radical changes to the director's role. It is clear that the role of the board director today is not an easy one, following the 2008 financial meltdown, which resulted in a deeper and more prolonged period of economic downturn that anyone expected. The research for explanations in the main post-mortems of the crisis has means blame has been spread far and wide. Governments, regulators, central banks, and auditors have all been in the frame. The role of bank directors and management, and the widely publicized failures have been intensively pickled over and examined in reports, in inquiries, and commentaries. The local effects of this scrutiny has been to make the governments of companies in general an issue of intense public debates and has significantly increased the pressure on and the responsibilities of directors at the smallest and most practical level. Their time involved in fulfilling the demands of the board directorship has increased significantly, calling into question the effectiveness of the classical model of cooperative governance by part-time independent non-executive directors, where once a board schedule may have considered averaging 8 and 10 meetings a year. In many companies, the number of events requiring board inputs and decisions has dramatically risen, and furthermore, the amounts of reading and preparation required for each meeting is increasing. Agenda can become overloaded, and this can mean the time for constructive debates must necessarily be restricted in favor of getting through the business. Often, board business is devolved to committees in order to cover with the workload, which may be more efficient, but can mean that the board as a whole is less involved in fully addressing some of the most important issues. It is not uncommon for the audit committee meeting to last longer than the main board meeting itself. Process may take the place of the discussion and be at the expense of real collaboration, so that the boxes are tackled rather than issued tackled. A radical solution, which may work for some very large companies whose businesses are extensive and complex, is the professional board whose members will work up to 3 or 4 days a week, supported by their own dedicated staff and their advisor. There are obvious risks to this, and it would be important to establish clear guidelines for such a board to ensure that it is not stepped on the toes of management by becoming too engaged in the day-to-day running of the company. Problems of recruitment, remuneration, and independency could also arise, and this structure will not be appropriate for all companies. However, more professional and better informed boards would have been particularly appropriate for banks where the executive had access to the information that part-time non-executive directors lacked. Believing the latter are unable to comprehend it or anticipated the 2008 crash. One of their main criticism of boards and their directors is that they do not focus sufficiently on longer-term matters of strategy, is essentially sustainability and governance, and but instead concentrate too much on short-term financial metrics, regulatory requirements, and the structure of the market encourage this behavior. The centrally quarterly reporting can distort board decision making, as directors have to make the numbers every 4 months to meet the insatiable appetite of the markets for more data. This serves to encourage the trading in methodology of the certain kind of investor who moves in and out of a stock without engaging in constructive dialogue with the company about strategy or performance, and is simply seeking a short-term financial gain. This effect has been made worse by the changing profile of investors due to the globalization of capital and the increasing use of automated trading system called cooperative. The culture adapts and the management teams are largely incentivized to meet financial goals. Compensation for chief executive has become a combat zone where pitched battles between investors, management, and the board members are fought often behind closed doors, but increasingly frequently in the foreglare of price attention. Many would argue that this is in the interest of transparency and good governance, as shareholders use their muscle in the area of pay to pressure borders to remove underperforming chief executive. Their powers to vote down executive remuneration policies increased when binding votes came into force. The chair of the remuneration committee can be exploited, and the lonely role as Alison Canoff, chair of Barclays Bank's committee, found when she had to resign, having been roundly criticized for trying to defend the enormous balance to be paid to the chief executive. The irony being that she was widely understood to have spoken out against it in the privacy of the committee. The financial crisis stimulated a debate about the role and purpose of the company, and highlighting the awareness of corporate ethics. Trust in the corporation has been eroded, and academics such as Michael Sandel in his thoughtful and best-selling book "Was Money Can Buy?" he questioning in the modernity of capitalism and the market's economy. In borders of companies in all sectors will need to widen their perspective to encompass these issues, and this may involve alignment of cooperative goals we need in challenging times. New Zealand is a small country of 4 million inhabitants, a long haul flights from all the major tourist generating markets of the world. Tourism currently makes up 9% of the country's gross domestic product, and is the country's largest export sector. Unlike other export sectors which make products and then sells them overseas, tourism brings its customer to New Zealand. The products is the country itself, the people, the places, and the experiences. In 1999, Tourism New Zealand launches a campaign to communicate a new brand position to the world. The campaign focused on New Zealand's scenic beauty, is celebrating in outdoor activities and authentic Maori culture, and it's made New Zealand one of the strongest national brands in the world. A key feature of the campaign was the website www.newzealand.com, which provided potential visitors to New Zealand with a single gateway to everything the destination had to offer. The heart of the website were activities of the tourism services operators, both those based in New Zealand and those based abroad, which offered tourism services to the country. Any tourism-related business could be listed by filling in a sample form. This means that even the smallest bed and breakfast addresses or specialist activity provider could gain a web presence with access to an audience of long-haul visitors. In addition, on regular basis, the information provided remained accurate and maintain and improve standards. Tourism New Zealand organized a scheme whereby organization appearing on the websites underwent an independent evaluation against a set of accurate national standards of quality. As part of this, the effects of each business on the environment was considered. To communicate the New Zealand experience, the site also carried features relating to famous people and places. One of the most popular was an interview with former New Zealand All Blacks rugby captain Tana Umaga. Another feature that attracted lots of attention was an interactive journal through a number of the locations choosing for a blockbuster film, which had made use of New Zealand's stunning scenery. As a traveler's device, their own customized to make it easier to plan monthly holidays. To the sites cataloged the most popular driving routes in the country, highlighting different routes according to the season and indicating distance and times. Later, a travel planner's features was added, which allowed visitors to clock and bookmark places or attractions they were interested in, and then view the results on the map. And the travel planner offered suggested routes and public transport options between the choosing locations. There were also links to accommodation in the area by registering with the website. User could save time, save their travel plan, and return to it later, or print it also to take on their visit. The websites also have a Your Words section where anyone could submit a blog of their New Zealand travelers for possible inclusion on the website. And the Tourism New Zealand website won 2 YB awards for online achievements and innovation. More importantly, perhaps the growth of tourism to New Zealand was impressive. Overall tourism expenditure increased by an average of 6.9% per year between 1999 and 2004. For Britain, visitors to New Zealand grew at an average annual rate of 13% between 2002 and 2006, compared to a rate of 4% overall for British visits abroad. The website was set up to allow both individuals and travel organizations to create itineraries and travel packages to suit their own needs and interests. On their website, visitors can search for activities not solely by geographical location, but also by the particular nature of the activity. This is important as research shows that activities are the key driver of visitors' satisfaction, contributing 74% to visitors' satisfaction, and where transport accommodation accounts for the remaining 26%. The more activities that visitors are taking, the more satisfied they will be. It has also been found that visitors enjoy cultural activities most when they are interactive, such as visiting a meeting ground to learn about traditional marine life. Many non-hill travelers enjoy such learning experiences, which provide them with stories to take home to their friends and family. In addition, it appears that visitors to New Zealand don't want to be one of the crowd and find activities that involve only a few people more special and meaningful. It could be argued that New Zealand is not a typical destination. New Zealand is a small country with a visitor economy composed mainly of small businesses. It is generally perceived as a safe English-speaking country with a reliable transport infrastructure. Because of the long-haul flights, most visitors stay for longer, average 20 days, and want to see as much of the country as possible on what is often seen as the once in a lifetime visits. However, the online license apply anywhere. The effectiveness of a strong brand strategy based on unique experiences and a comprehensive and user-friendly website. We all knew how it feels. It is impossible to keep your mind on anything. Time stretches. Time stretches out, and the other things you could do seem equally unlikely to make you feel better. Defining boredom so that it can be studied in the lab has proved difficult. For a start, it can include a lot of other mental states such as frustration, absolute depression, and indifferences. There isn't even agreement over whether boredom is always a low energy and fast kind of emotion, or whether feeling agitated and restlessness counts as boredom. Too, in his book Boredom: A Lively's History, Peter Tusley at the University of Calgary, Canada, compares these two disgust. An emotion that motivates us to stay away from certain situations. Its disgust protects humans from infection. Boredom may protect them from infectious social situations. He suggests by asking people about their experience of boredom, Thomas Galtix and his team at the University of common scales in Germany has recently identified 5 distinct types in difference, calibrating in searching reactant, and apathetic. This can be plotted on 2 axes, one running left or to right, which measures low to high arousal, and the other from top to bottom, which measures how positive or negative the feeling is. Intriguingly, Gallison has found that while people experience all kinds of boredom, and they tend to specialize in one of the 5 types. The most damaging is reactant boredom, with its explosive combination of high arousal and negative emotion. And the most useful is what Gallison calls indifference boredom. When someone isn't engaged in anything is satisfied but still feels relaxed and calm. However, it remains to be seen whether there are any character traits that predict the kind of boredom each of us might be prone to. Psychologist Sandor Manning at the University of Central Lancashire, UK, goes further. All emotions are there for a reason, including boredom, she says. Manning has found that being bored makes us more creative. We are all afraid of being in boredom, but in actual fact, it can lead to all kinds of amazing things. He says in experiments published last year, found that people who had been made to feel bored by copying numbers out of their phone book for 15 minutes came up with more creative ideas about how to use a polysyndrome and kept them a control group. Man concluded as a passive, boring activity is best for creativity because it allows the mind to wander. In fact, she goes so far as to suggest that we should seek out more boredom in our lives. Psychologist John Easterwoods at York University in Toronto, Canada, isn't convinced. If you are in a state of mind wandering, you are no sport. He says, in my view, by definition, and boredom is an undesirable state. That doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't adaptive. He adds, pain is adaptive. If we didn't have physical pain, and bad things would happen to us, does that mean that we should actively cause pain? No, but even if boredom has evolved to help us survive, it can still be toxic. If allowed to fester for Easterwood, the central feature of boredom is a failure to put our attention stem into gear. This causes an inability to focus on anything, which makes time seem to go painful solely. What's more, your efforts to improve the situation can end up making you feel worse. People try to connect with the world, and if they are not successful, there's frustration and irritability. It says, perhaps most worldly, it says Easterwood, repeatedly failing to engage attention and can lead to states where we don't know what to do anymore and no longer care. Easterwood's team is now trying to explore why the attention stem falls its earlier days, but they think that at least some of it comes down to personality. Important prominence that has been linked with a variety of traits. People who are motivated by pleasure seem to suffer particularly badly. Other personality traits, such as personality, are associated with a high boredom threshold, more evidence that the boredom has detrimental effects comes from the studies of people who are more or less prone to boredom. It seems those who bore easily face poor prospects in education, in their career, and even life in general. But of course, boredom itself cannot kill. It is the things we do to deal with it that may put us in danger. What can we do to alleviate it before it comes too hard? It comes to that. Those groups has one suggestion: working with teenagers. They found that those who approach boring situations, in other words, see that it's boring and get stuck in anyway, report less boredom than those who try to avoid it by using Slacks, TV or social media from distraction. And psychologists from fantasy Watson and speculate that over-connected lifestyles must even be a new source of boredom. In modern human societies, there is a lot of over-stimulation, but still a lot of problems finding meaning. It says, so instead of seeking yet more mental stimulation, perhaps we should leave our phones alone and use boredom to motivate us to engage with the world in a more meaningful way. The Painting Full is one of the growing number of computer programs which so their makers claim possess creative talent. And classical music by an artificial composer has had the audience enraptured and even trickled them into believing a human was behind their score. Artworks are painted by robots. They have sold for thousands of dollars and being hung in prestigious galleries, and software has been built which creates art that could not have been imagined by the programmer. Human beings are the only species to perform sophisticated creative acts regularly. If we can break this process down into computer code, where does that leave human creativity? This is the question at the very core of humanity. Says James Wiggins, a computational creativity researcher at University of London. It scares a lot of people. They are worried that it is taking something special away from what it means to be human. To some extent, we are all familiar with computerized art. The question is, where does the work of the artist stop and the creativity of the computer begin? Consider one of the oldest machine artists, a robot that has had paintings exhibited in London, State Modern, and the San Francisco museums of modern art. Around can pick up a paintbrush and paint on canvas on its own. Impressive, perhaps, but it's still a little more than a tool to realize the programs on creative ideas. Stephen Cotton is the designer of the Painting Full. It's keen to make sure his creation doesn't attract the same criticism. Unlike earlier artists such as Aronson, the painting for only needs minimal direction and came up with his own concepts by going online for materials. The software runs its own web searches and trawls through social media sites. It is now beginning to display a kind of imagination to creating pictures from scratch. One of its original works is the series of fuzzy landscapes depicting trees and the sky, where some might say they have a mechanical look. Carlton argues that such reactions arise from people who do double standards towards software-produced and human-produced art. After all, he says, consider that the painting the landscapes without referring to a photo. If a child paints a nuisance from its head, it would say it has a certain level of imagination. He points out that the same should be true of a machine. Software bugs can also lead to unexpected results. Some of the paintings of the child came out in black and white, thanks to a technical glitch. This gives the work ghost-like quality. Humans artists like the renewed Lazarus Kid are loaded for imitating in the color palette. So why should the computers be any different? Researchers like Carlton don't believe it is right to measure machine creativity directly to that of humans who have found millennia to develop our skills. Others though are fascinated by the prospect that a computer might create something as original and so subtle as our best artists. So far, only one has come close. Composer David Cooper invented a program called Experiments in Musical Intelligence, or EMI. Not only did EMI create compositions in comp style, but also that of most classical composers, including Bach, Chopin, and Mozart. Audiences were moved to tears, and EMI even fooled classical music experts into thinking they were hearing a genuine Bach. Not everyone was impressed, however. Some, such as Wiggins, have based Cooper's work as perspective science and condemned him for his deliberately evoking explanation of how their software worked. Meanwhile, Douglas Harvard of Indian University said EMI created a replica which still rely completely on the original artist's creative impulses. When audiences found out the truth, they were often outraged with Cobb, and one music lover even tried to punch him. And such a controversy, Cobb destroyed EMI vital databases. But why did so many people love their music? It's or when they discovered how this was composed. A study by computer scientist David Mouse of Glasgow University provided a tool. He asked both experts, musicians, and lab experts to assess six compositions participation. So whether it's told beforehand whether the tones were composed by humans or computers, but were asked to guess and then rate how much they liked each one. People who thought the composer was a computer tended to dislike the piece more than those who believed it was human. This was true even among the experts, who must have been expected to be more objective in their analysis. Where does this prejudice came from? And Paul Bloom of Yale University has a suggestion. He reckons part of the pleasure we get from art students from the creative process behind the work. This can give it an irresistible essence, says Bloom. Meanwhile, experiments by Justin Collar of New York University have shown that people's enjoyment of an artwork increases if they think more time and effort was needed to create it. Similarly, Cotton thinks that when people experience art, they wonder what the artist must have been thinking or what the artist is trying to tell them. It seems obvious, therefore, that with computers producing art, this speculation is cut short. There's nothing to explore, but as technology becomes increasingly complex, finding this greater depth in computer art could become possible. This is precisely why Cotton asked the painting info to tap into online social networks for its inspiration. Hopefully, this way is where choose themes that will already be meaningful to us. Cinnamon is a sweet fragrance. This produced from the inner bark of tree of the genus. Cinnamon, which is native to the Indian subcontinent. It was learned in biblical times and is mentioned in several books of the Bible, both as an ingredient that was mixed with oils for anointing in people's bodies, and also as a token indicating in friendship among lovers and friends. In ancient Rome, mourners attending funerals burned cinnamon to create a pleasant scent. Most often, however, the spice found its primary use as an additive to food and drink. In the Middle Ages, Europeans who could afford the spice used it to flavor food. Particularly meat, and to impress those around them with their ability to purchase an expensive condiment from the exotic East. As at a banquet, a host would offer guests a plate with various species piled upon it as a sign of the worth at his or her disposal. Cinnamon was also reported to have health benefits and was thought to cure various elements such as indigestion. And toward the end of the Middle Ages, the European middle classes began to desire the lifestyle of the elite, including in the consumption of spices. This led to a growth in demand for cinnamon and other species. At that time, cinnamon was transported by Arabic merchants who closely guarded the secrets of the source of the space from potential rivals. And they took it from India, where it was grown on camels via an overland routes to the Mediterranean, and their journey ended when they reached Alexandria. European traders sailed there to purchase the supply of cinnamon. Then brought these back to Valence. In the space then traveled from that great trading city to markets all around Europe. Because the overland trade routes allowed for only small quantities of the space to reach Europe, and because Valence had a virtual multiply of the trade, the Venetians could set the price of something extraordinarily high. These prices coupled with the increasing demand supplied the search for new routes to Asia by Europeans eager to take part in the spice trade. Seeking the high profits promised by the markets, Portuguese traders arrived on the island of Canaan in the Indian Ocean towards the end of the 15th century. Before Europeans arrived on the island, the states had organized the cultivation of cinnamon in people belonging to the ethnic group called the Senegama, or peel the bark off. Young shoots of cinnamon plants in the rainy season, and when the white marks were more playable during the planting process, peeling process, and they cut the bark into stick shape still are associated with the space today. The scammer then give the finished product to the king as their form of tribute. When the Portuguese arrived, they led to increase production significantly and so enslaved many other members of the country's native population, enforcing them to work in harvesting. In 1518, the Portuguese built a fort of Canaan, which enabled them to protect their island, so helping them to develop a monopoly in the cinnamon trade and generate a very high profit. In the late 15th century, for example, they enjoyed a tenfold profits when shipping cinnamon over the journey of estates from Canaan to India. When the Dutch arrived off the coast of southern Asia at the very beginning of the 7th century, and they set their sights on displacing the Portuguese as the kings of cinnamon, and the Dutch allied themselves with Candy, and the island condemned on Canaan in return. And for payments of elephants and cinnamon, they protected the native king from the Portuguese. By 1540, The Dutch broke the 150 years Portuguese monopoly when they overrun and occupied their factories. By 1658, they had permanently expelled the Portuguese from the island, and thereby gaining control of their lucrative semi-Malian trade. In order to protect their hold on their markets, the Dutch united the Portuguese again before them and treated the native inhabitants harshly because of the needed to boost production and satisfy Europeans' ever increasing appetite for seeing Malian. The Dutch began to alter the harvesting practices of their colonies. Over time, the supply of Malian trees on the island become nearly exhausted due to systematic stripping of their bark. Eventually, the Dutch began cultivating their own cinnamon trees to supplement the dismissing number of wild trees available for use. Then in 1796, the English arrived on Canada, thereby displacing the Dutch from their control of their monopoly. By the middle of the 19th century, production of Malian reached 1,000 tons a year. After a lower grade, the quality of the Swiss became acceptable to European tastes. At that time, cinnamon was being grown in other parts of the Indian Ocean region and in the West Indians, Brazil, and not only was becoming impossible, but the space trade overall was diminishing in economic potential and was eventually superseded by the rise of trade in coffee, tea, chocolate, and sugar. Oxytocin is a chemical or hormone produced in the pituitary gland in the brain, and it works through various studies focusing on animals that scientists first became aware of the influence of oxytocin. They discovered that it helps reinforce the bonds between parasites, which mates for life, and triggers the mothering behavior that shape show towards their newborn lambs. It is also released by women in childbirth, strengthening in the attachment between mother and baby. A few chemicals have also positive reputation as oxytocin, which is sometimes referred to as the love hormone. One sliver of its can is claimed make a person more trusting, emphatic, generous, and cooperative. It is time, however, to revise this wholly optimistic view. A new wave of studies has shown that its efforts vary greatly depending on the persons and the circumstances, and its can impact on our social interactions for worse as well for better. Oxytocin in human behavior first engaged in 2005 in groundbreaking experiments. Marcus Hedges and his colleagues at the University of Freiburg, Germany, asked the volunteers to do an activity in which they could invest the money with an anonymous person who was not guaranteed to be honest. And the team found that participants who had deciphered the oxytocin in their unconscious right and beforehand invested more money than those who received a placebo instead. The study was the start of research into the efforts of oxytocin on human interactions for 8 years. It was quite a long field. It's because now everyone is interested. These follow-up studies have shown that after a sleep of the hormone, people become more comfortable and better at reading the emotions on their face and at communicating in constructively in arguments. Together, the results fueled the view that oxytocin universally enhanced the positive aspects of our social nature. Then, after a few years, constructing findings began to emerge. Similar studies at the University of Israel found that when volunteers played a competitive game, those who inhaled the hormone showed more pleasure when they beat the other players and feels more envy when others own. What's more, administering oxytocin also has sharply constricting the outcomes depending on the person's disposition. And Jennifer Barkley from Mountain Schools of Medicine in New York found that it improved people's ability to read emotions, but only if they are not very socially adapt to begin with. In her research also shows that oxytocin in fact reduces cooperation in subjects who are particularly anxious or sensitive to rejection. Another discovery is that oxytocin's efforts vary depending on who we are interacting with. Studies conducted by Clerk of the University of Bangalore revealed that people who had received a dose of oxytocin actually became less cooperative when dealing with complete strangers. Meanwhile, consultant to those at the University of estimated in the Netherlands discovered that volunteers giving oxytocin showed favoritism and Dutchmen become quicker to surface positive words with Dutch names than with foreign ones. For example, according to oxytocin drives people to care for those in their social circles and define them from outside dangers. So it appears that oxytocin strengthens basis rather than promoting general goodwill as well as was previously thought. There were signs of this subtitle. From the start, Wells has recently shown that in almost half of their existing research results, oxytocin influenced only certain individuals or in certain circumstances were once researchers to no notice of such findings. Now, a more nuanced understanding of oxytocin efforts is propelling investigations down new lines to Barton's the key to understanding what's the common and that lies in picking is called function rather than in category in the simultaneously effect. And there are several hypotheses which are not moderately exclusive. Oxytocin could help to reduce anxiety and fear, or it could simply motivate people to seek out social connections. She believes that oxytocin acts as a chemical spotlight that shines on social clues, or shifts in posture, flicker of their eyes, and deep in their voice, making people more attuned to their social environment. Improves our ability to identify emotions, but it could also make things worse for people who are already sensitive or prone to interpreting social cues in their worst light. Perhaps we should not be surprised that the oxytocin story has become more perplexing. The hormone is found in everything from octopuses to sheep, and its evolutionary roots stretch back half a billion years. It is a very simple and ancient molecule that has been co-opted for many different functions. So thus at the University of Lillings, Chicago, USA, it affects primitive parts of the brain like the amygdala, so it's going to have many effects on just about everything. Master agrees oxytocin appropriately does everything very basic things, but once you add our higher order thinkings and social situations, this basic process could manifest in different ways depending on individual differences and contexts. Most managers can identify the major trends of their day because in the course of conducting research in a number of industries and working directly with clients, we have discovered that managers often fail to recognize the less obvious but profound ways these trends are influencing consumers' aspirations, attitudes, and behaviors. This is especially true of trends that managers view as peripheral to their core markets. Many ignore trends in their invention strategies, adopt a wait and see approach, and let competitors take the lead. At a minimum, such responses mean missed profits opportunities at the extreme. They can jeopardize a company by setting into rivals the opportunity to transform the industry. The purpose of this article is twofold: to managers to think more extensively about how trends could engender new value propositions in their core markets, and to provide some high-level advice on how to make market research and product development personal more adept at analyzing and exploiting trends. One strategy known as infuse and argument is to design products or service that retains most of the attributes and the functions of existing products in the category, but adds others that address the lives and desire unleashed. A major trend case in points is the poppy range of handbags, which the film culture creates in response to the economic downturn of 2008. The culture brand had been a symbol of opulence and luxury for nearly 30 years, and the most obvious reaction to the downturn would have been to lower prices. However, that would have risked cheapening in the brand's image. Instead, they initiated a consumer research project which revealed that customers were eager to lift themselves and the country out of times. Using these insights, Coach launched the lower priced popular handbags, which were in vibrant colors and looked more useful and playful than conventional culture products. Creating the sub-brand allowed Coach to avert and across the board price cuts. In contrast to the many companies that responded to the recessions by cutting prices, and Coach saw the new consumer middle-size as an opportunity for innovation, and renewal. First example of this strategy was supermarkets Tesco was response to consumers' growing concern about the environment. With that in mind, Tesco, one of the world's top 5 retailers, introduced its greener living program, which demonstrates the company's commitment to protecting the environment by involving consumers in ways that produce tangible results. For example, Tesco customers can accumulate points for such activities reusing bags, recycling in cans, and printer cartridges, and buying home insulation in materials like points earned on regular purchases. And these green points can be redeemed for cash. Tesco has not abandoned its traditional retail offerings, but engaging its businesses with these innovations, and thereby infusing its value proposition with a green fleet. A more radical strategy is to combine and transcend. This entails combining aspects of their products' existing value proposition with attributes addressing changes arising in former change to create a novel experience, one that may land the company in an entirely new market space. At first glance, spending resources on incorporate elements of a seemingly irrelevant trend into one's core offering sounds like it's hardly worthwhile, but consider like a move to integrate the digital revolution into its reputation for high performance athletic software. In 2006, they teamed up with technology company Apple to launch Mac Plus, a digital sports case comprising a sensor that attaches to the running shoe and a wireless receiver that connects to the user's Apple. By combining Lex's original value proposition for amateur athletes with one for digital consumers, the NEC+ sports kits and web interface mode to complete from focus on athletic apparel to a new plane of engagement with its customers. A third approach, known as counteract and referred, involves developing in products or services that stress the values traditionally associated with the company or with the category in ways that allow consumers to pause or at least temporarily escape from the aspects of trends they view as undesirable. Products that accomplish this with the ME2 of video game created by Canada Toys and by referring their toy categories association with the physical play. The ME2 can counteracted some of the widely perceived negative impacts of digital gaming devices, like other handheld games. In the device featured a host of exciting interactions games for color LCD curved screen, and advanced device featured a host of exciting interactive games for color LCD screen and advanced 3D graphics. What sets it apart was that it's incorporated in the traditional physical components of child display. Is contained matter which tackled and awarded points for physical activities: walking, running, biking, and skateboarding. In climbing stairs, in the child could use the points to enhance various virtual skills needed for their video games. The ME2, introduced in May 2008, created to kids' huge desire to play video games while counting the negatives such as association with lack of experience and ability. Once you have gained perspective on how trend-related changes in consumer options, opinions, and behaviors impacts on your category, you can determine which of your over three innovation strategies to pleasure. When you categorize basic value proposition and continues to be meaningful for consumers, influenced by the trends, the infuse and the argument strategy will allow you to reinvigorate the category. If analyze the reviews and increasing disparity between your category and the consumer's new focus, you are innovations and to transcend it, the category to integrate the two words. Finally, if aspects of the category clash with undesired outcomes of a trend, such as association with unhealthy lifestyles, there is an opportunity to counteract those changes by reforming the core value of your category. Trends, technological, ecological trends, technological, economic, environmental, social, or political, that affects how people perceive the world around them and shape what they expect from products and services. Presents firms with unique opportunities for growth. For millennia, the coconut has been central to the lives of Polynesian and Asian peoples in the Western world, on the other hand, coconuts have always been exotic and unusual. Sometimes rare, the Italian merchant traveler Polo apparently saw coconuts in South Asia in the late 17th century, and among the mid 14th century travel writings, he also joined medieval. There is mention of great sloths of yellow, great snuts of India. The images of palm are fragrant tropic beaches or glaciers in the west to see holidays, chocolates, bars, fizzy drinks, and even romance. Typically, we investigate chocolates at brown cannibals that, when opened, provides with white flesh, but we see only part of fruits and none of the plants from which they come. The coconut palm has a smooth, slender, gray trunk up to 30 meters tall. This is an important source of timber for building houses, and is increasingly being used as a replacement for endangered hardwoods in the furniture construction industry. The trunk is surrounded by rosters of leaves, each of which may be up to 6 meters long. And the leaves have hard veins in their centers, which in many parts of the world are used as brushes after the green part of the leaf has been stripped away. Immature coconuts flowers are tightly clustered together among the leaves at the top of the trunk. The flower stems may be tapped for their sap to produce a drink, and their sap can also be reduced by boiling to produce a type of sugar used for cooking. And coconut palms produce as much as 70 views per year, weighing more than a kilogram each. The wall of the fruits has 3 layers: waterproof outer layers, fibrous middle layers, and hard inner layers. The thick fibrous middle layers produce the coconuts are fiber coral, which has numerous uses and is particularly important in manufacturing roles. The woody in the innermost layer, the shear with its 3 prominent eyes surroundings the thread. Important products obtained from the shear is coral, which is widely used in various industries as well as in the home as a cooking fuel. When broken in half, the shells are also used as bowls in many parts of Asia. Inside the shells are the nutrients needed by the developing seed. Initially, at the center is a sweetish liquid coconut water, which is enjoyed as a drink, but also provides the hormones which encourage other plants to grow more rapidly and produce higher yields. As the fruits matures, the coconut water gradually solidifies to form the brilliant wines, fat-rich in edible flesh or meat. Dried coconut flesh and copra is made into coconut oil and coconut milk, which are widely used in cooking in different parts of the world, as well as in cosmetics. A derivative of coconut fat, glycerin, acquired artistic importance in the requires different sphere as Alfred Lober introduced the word to his neutral glycerin-based invention, and they dryment. And their biology would appear to make coconuts the greatest marking villagers and coastal colonies of the plant's world. The larger engaged rich fruits are able to float in water and tolerate salts, but cannot remain viable indefinitely. Studies suggest after about 110 days, as they are no longer able to germinate, literally cast onto the desert island shores with little more than sand to grow in green and exposed to the full glare of the tropical sun. Coconut seeds are able to germinate and root. The air pocket in their seed created at the solidifiers protected to protect the inhalation the fibrous fruits thus help to float during the various storage moisture that can be taken up by the roots of the coconut seedling as it starts to grow. There have been centuries of academic debates over the origins of the coconut, and there were no coconut plants in West Africa, the Caribbean, or the east coast of the Americans before the voyages of the European explorers Vasquez da Gama and Columbus in the late 15th and earlier 15th centuries. 15th century trade and human migration and patterns reveal that Arab traders and European settlers are likely to have moved the coconuts from South and Southeast Asia to Africa and then across the Atlantic to the east coast of the America. But the origin of coconuts discovered along the west coast of America by 16th century settlers has been the subject of the centuries of discussion, and to diametrically opposed origins have been proposed, that they came from Asia or that they were native to America. Also, suggestions have problems. In Asia, there is a large degree of diversity and evidence of pneumonia of human use, but there are no relatives growing in the wild. In America, there are close coconut relatives, but no evidence that coconuts are indigenous. And these problems have led to the intriguing suggestion that coconuts originate on coral islands in the Pacific and were disappeared from there. The typical way of talking to a baby, high-pitched, exaggerated, and repetitious, is a source of fascination for linguistics who hope to understand how a baby talk impacts on learning. Most babies start developing their hearing while still in the womb, propounding in some helpful parents to play classical music to their pregnant babies. Some research even suggests that infants are listening to adult speech as early as 10 weeks before being born, and gathering the basic building blocks of their family's native tongue. Early language exposure seems to have benefits to the brain. For instance, studies suggest that babies raised in bilingual homes are better at learning how to mentally prioritize prioritize information. So how does the sweetie if someone sometimes observed sound of infants is directly speech influence a baby's development? Here are some recent studies that explore the science behind the baby talk. Fathers don't use baby talks as often or in some ways as mothers, and that's perfectly okay, according to a new study in Mark Van Dam of Washington State University at small clinic and colleges equipped parents with recording device and speech regulations of the word to study the way they interacted with their youngest during a normal day. We found that moms do exactly what you expected and was been described many times over. Van Dam explains about we found that ants doing the same thing. That don't raise their pitch or fundamental frequency when they talk to kids, and the role may be rooted in what is called the bridge hypothesis, which dates back to 1975. It suggests that the fathers use less familiar language to adhere. That a kind gets to practice a certain kind of speech with mom and another kind of speech with dad. So that kid then had a wider repertoire of kinds of speech to practice. Says Van Dam, scientists from the University of Washington and the University of Connecticut collected thousands of 30-second conversation between parents and their babies. 1526 children with audio recording that capture language and sound during a typical 8-hour day. The study found that the more baby talk parents use, the more their youngest begin to babble. And when researchers saw the same babies at the age of 2, they found that frequent baby talk had dramatically boosted vocabulary regardless of social economic status. Those children who listened to a lot of baby talk were talking more than their babies that listened to more adult talks or standard speech, says at the University of Connecticut. We also found that it really matters whether you use baby talk in a one-on-one context. She adds, the more parents use baby talk one-on-one, and the more babies babble, and the more they babble, the more words they produce later in life. Another study suggests that parents might want to pair their youngest up so they can babble more with their own kind. Researchers from McGill University found that babies seem to like listening to each other rather than to adults, which may be why baby talks is such a universal to among parents. And they played repeating vowel sounds made by a special or synthesizing device that mimicked sounds may be either an adult, woman, or another baby. This way, on the impacts of the auditory cords was observed. The team then measured how long each type of sound held the infant's attention, and they found that the infant sounds heard like babies potentially nearly 40% longer. The baby voice also induced more reactions in the listening infants, like smiling or lip moving, which approximately sound making. The team theorized that this attraction to other infant sounds could help launch the learning process that leads to speech. it may be some property of the sound that is just drawing their attention. This study co-author Linda Polke, or maybe they are really interested in that particular type of sound because that's starting to focus on their own ability to make sounds. We are speculating here, but it must catch their attention because they recognize it as a sound they could possibly make. In a study published in Proceeding of National Academy of Science, in a total of 57 babies from two slightly different age groups, 7 months and 11 and a half months, were played a number of syllables from both their native language, English, and a non-native tongue, Spanish. The infants were placed in a brain activation scanner that recorded activity in the brain region known to get to motor movements that produce speech. The results suggest that listening to pep talk infects brains, so brains to start practicing their language skills and finding activation in motor areas of the brain where infants are simply listening is significant because it means the baby brain is engaged in trying to talk back right from the start, and just that 7-month-old brains are already trying to figure out how to make the right movements that were produced. Words, as is co-author practical another interesting finding was that while the 7-month-olds responded to all speech sounds regardless of language, the brains of the older infants worked harder at the motor activation of native sounds compared to native sounds. The study may have also uncovered a process by which babies recognize differences between the native language and other tongues. The heritage civilization of Asians, Pakistan, and India flourished 5,000 years ago, but 1,000 years later, their cities were abandoned. The Harappan civilization was also sophisticated. A Bronze Age society who built cities and traded internationally in natural products, and yet seem to have left almost no depiction of themselves, but their lack of self-imagery at the time when the Egyptians were covering and painting representations of themselves all over their temples. It's only part of the mystery. There is plenty of archaeological evidence to tell us about the rise of the Harappan civilization. We must relatively later about its fall. Events archaeologist Dr. Camille Peters of the University of Cambridge as populations increased. Cities were built that had great bath and crafts workshops and places and hills laid out in distinct sectors. Houses were arranged in blocks with wide main streets and narrow alleyways, and many had their own walls and bridges. Systems was very much thriving civilization. And then around 2100 BC, transformation began. Streets once uncleared, buildings started to be abandoned, and ritual structures fell out of use after their final dismiss. A millennium passed before really large-scale cities appeared once more in South Asia. Some have claimed that major glacier-filled rivers changed their course dramatically affecting their water supply and agriculture, or that the city could lose cope with an increasing population in the exhausted their resource base. The trending economy broke down on the succumbed into invasion and conflict, and yes, others that climate change caused an environmental change that affected food and water provision. It is unlikely that there were a single cause for the decline of their civilization. But the fact is, until now, we have had little solid evidence from the area for most of the key elements, said Patrick. A lot of the ideological debates has really only been well argued as speculation. A research team led by Patrick, together with Dr. Ravivolin Sinha of the Benares University in India, found earlier in their investigation that many of the ideological states were lost where they are supposed to be, completely altering the understanding of the way that this region were inhabited in the past. When they carried out a survey of how the larger area was settled in relation to the source of water, they found inaccuracies in the published geographic locations of ancient settlements ranging from several hundred meters to many kilometers. They realized that any attempts to use the existing data were likely to be fundamentally flawed over the course of several seasons of field work. They carried out new surveys, finding an astonishing 198 segments sites that were previously unknown. Now, research published by Dr. Yama Dixit and Professor David Hollowell, both from Cambridge's Department of Earth Sciences, has provided the first definitive evidence for climate change affecting the plains of northwestern India, where hundreds of harappan sites are known to have been situated. And the researchers gathered shields of snails from the sediments of an ancient lake and used the geochemical analysis as a means of tracing in the climate history of the region. And today, the major source of water into the lake is likely to have been in the summer monsoon and since Brexit. But we have observed that there was an abrupt change about 4,100 years ago when the amount of evaporation from the lake exceeded the rainfall indicative of a drought. However, we estimate that the weakenings of the Indian summer monsoon climate lasted about 200 years before recovering to the previous conditions which we still see today. It has long been thought that another great Bronze Age civilizations also decline at a similar time with a global scale or climate events being seen at the cause, where it is possible that these local scale processes were linked. And the real ideological interest lies in understanding the impacts of these larger scale events on different environments, and the different populations. Considering the vast area of the Harappan civilizations with its variable weather systems explains the sign, then it is essential that we obtain more climate data from areas close to the two great sites as Mahaja and also from the India project. Portraits and the science and team is now examining archaeological records and trying into understanding details of how people live their lives in the region 5 millennia ago. The analyzing grains cultivated at their time and trying to work out whether they were grown under extreme conditions of water stress, and whether they were adjusting in the combination of crops they were growing for different weather systems. They are also looking at whether the types of poultry used and other aspects of the material culture were distinctive to specific regions or were more similar across large areas. This gives us insights into the types of interactive networks that the population they were involved in and whether those changed. Progress believes that archaeologists are in a unique position to investigate how past societies responded to environmental and climatic change. By investigating responses to environmental pressures and threats, we can learn from their past to engage with the public and the relevant governmental and administrative bodies to be more proactive in issues such as the management and administration of water supply, the balance of urban and rural development, and the importance of preserving cultural heritage in the future. The 19th century was a period of great technological developments in Britain, and for shaping the major changes were from wind to steam power, and from wood to iron and steel. The fastest commercial sailing vessel of all time was Clipper, a master ship built to transport goods around the world. Although some also took pleasures from the 1840s until 1869, when the Suez Canal opened and steam population was replacing sail. Clippers dominated world trade. Also, many were built. Only one has survived more or less intact. Cul-de-sac, long on display in Greenwich, in southeast London. Cul-de-sac, an unusual name comes from the town sheltered by the Scottish port. Robert Burns came a farmer. Farmer is chased by a witch called Nanny, who is wearing a cul-de-sac, an altered Scottish name for a choice nestrance. And the witch is depicted in cul-de-sacs figurehead, the carving of a woman typically at the front of an old sailing ship. In legend and in Burns' poem, witches cannot cross water, so this was a rather strange choice of name for ship. Cul-de-sac was built in Dumbarton, Scotland, in 1868 for a shipping company owned by John Williams. To carry out the construction, Williams chose a new shipbuilding firm, Scott Lytton, and ensured that the contract with them puts him in a very strong position. In the end, the firm was forced out of business, and the ship was finished by a competitor. Williams' company was active in the tea trade between China and Britain, where were spent to bring shipping orders both profit and prestige. So Comstock was designed to make their journey more quickly than any other ship. On her maiden voyage in 1870, she set sail from London, carrying large amounts of goods to China. She returned laden with tea, making the journey back to London in 4 months. However, Kawasaki never lived up to the high expectation of her owner as a result of bad winds and various misfortunes. On one occasion in 1872, the ship and a rival clipper Therapy left the path in China on the same day, crossing the Indian Ocean. Kawasaki gained a lead of over 400 miles. About then, her rudder was severely damaged in the stormy seas, making her impossible to steer. The ship's crew had the daunting task of repairing the rudder at sea, and only succeeded at their second attempt. Kawasaki reached London a week after thermopylae. Steamships posed a growing threat to clippers as their speed and cargo capacity increased. In addition, the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, the same year as Kawasaki was launched, had a serious impact. Where steamships could make use of the quick, direct routes between the Mediterranean and the Red Sea, the canal was of no use to sailing ships, which needed to much stronger winds of the oceans, and so had to sail a far greater distance. Steamships reduced their general time between Britain and China by approximately 2 months. By 1878, tea traders wasn't interested in Kawasaki, and instead she took on the much less prestigious work of carrying any cargo between any two parts in the world. In 1880, violence aboard the ship led ultimately to the replacement of the captain with an incompetent drunkard who stole the crew's wages. He was suspended from the service, and a new captain appointed. This marked a turnaround and the beginning of the most successful period in Kawasaki's working life. Transporting wool from Australia to Britain, one such journey took just under 12 weeks, beating every other ship sailing that year by around a month. The ship's ex-captain, Richard Woodgate, was an excellent navigator who got the best out of both his ship and his crew. As the sailing ship, Kawasaki depended on the strong trade winds of the southern hemisphere, and Woodgate took her further south than any previous captain, bringing her dangerously close to aspects of the southern tip of the South America. His gamble paid off, though, and the ship was the fastest vessel in the world trade for 10 years. As competition from steamships increased in the 1890s, and Kawasaki approached the end of her life expectancy, she became less profitable. She was sold to a published film, which relented her Ferrari. For the next 25 years, she again carried miscellaneous cargoes around the world. Badly damaged in the gale in 1922, she was put into 4 months. However, in southwest England, for retired welfare Diamond's retired sea captain who owned a training vessel recognized her and tried to buy her. But without success, she returned to politics and was sold to another politics family. Diamond was determined, however, and offered a higher price. This was accepted, and the ship returned to 4 months the following year and had her original name restored. Diamond used Cotsaga as a train ship, and she continued in this role after his death. When she was no longer required, in 1954, she was transferred to a dry dock at Greenwich to go on public display. The ship suffered from fire in 2007 and again less seriously in 2014. But now Cotsaga attracts a quarter of a million visitors a year. More than a third of the world's soil is endangered. According to the recent UN report, if we don't slow the decline in all farmable soil could be gone in 60 years. This soil growth 95% of food and sustained human life in other more surprising ways. That is a huge problem. And Peter Goldfein from the Gray Institute of Ecosystem Studies in New York points out that soil scientists have been warned about the degradation of the world's soil for decades. At the same time, our understanding of its importance to humans has grown. In a single gram of healthy soil might contain 100 million bacteria, as well as other microorganisms such as viruses and fungi living amped decomposing plants and various materials. That means the soil do not just grow food, but are the source of nearly all of existing antibiotics, and could be our best hope in the fight against antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Soil is also an ally against climate change, as microorganisms within soil digest dead animals and plants. They lock in their carbon content, hardening 3 times the amount of carbon as does the entire atmosphere. So you also store water, preventing flood damage. In the UK, damage to buildings, roads, and bridges from floods caused by soil degradation cost 233 million pounds every year. If the soil loses its ability to perform these functions, the human race could be in big trouble. And the danger is not that the soil will disappear completely, but that the microorganisms that give this the special properties will be lost. And once this has happened, it may take the soil thousands of years to recover. Agriculture is by far the biggest problem in the wild. When plants grow, they remove nutrients from the soil, but then when the plants die and decay, these nutrients are returned directly into the soil. Humans tend not to return unused parts of harvest crops directly to the soil to enrich it, meaning that the soil gradually becomes less fertile. In the past, we developed strategies to get around the problem, such as regularly regularly varying the types of crops grown or live in fields and cultivated for a season. But these practices become inconvenience as populations grew and agriculture had to be run on more commercial lines. A solution came the solution came in the earlier 20th century with the herbal process of manufacturing ammonium nitrates. Farmers have been putting this synthetic fertilizer on their fields ever since. But over the past few decades, it has become clear this wasn't such a bright idea. Chemical fertilizers can release polluting nutrient oxide into the atmosphere, and excesses is often washed away with the rain, releasing nutrients into rivers. More recently, we have found that indiscriminate use of fertilizers harms the soil itself, turning it acidic and salty, and degrading in the soil they are supposed to nourish. One of the people looking for the solution to this problem is Piers Flores, who studied also running a tree care business in the Netherlands and now advised some of the world's top soil scientists. They came to realize that the best way to ensure his trees flourished was to take care of the soil, and has developed a cocktail of beneficial bacteria, fungi, and humans. To do it, researchers at the University of Valladolid in Spain regularly use this cocktail on soil destroyed by years of fertilizer overuse. When they applied for flourish the mix to the deserts like test plots, good crops of plants emerged that were not just healthy at the surface, but had roots strong enough to pierce the deserts as hard as rock. And the few plants that grew in the control plots filled with traditional fertilizers were small and weak. However, measures like this are not enough to solve the global soil degradation problem. To assess its over options on the global scale, we first need to accurate picture of what types of soil are out there and the problem they face. That's not easy. And for one thing, there's no agreed international system for classifying soil in an attempt to unify the different approaches. The UN has created the Global Soil Map Project. Researchers from 9 countries are working together to create a map linked to a database that can be fed measurements from field surveys, drone surveys, satellites, imagery, lab analysis, and so on to provide real-time data on the state of the soil. Within the next 4 years, they aim to have mapped soils worldwide to a depth of 100 meters, with the results freely accessible to all. Because this is only a first step, we need ways of presenting the problem that bring its harm to governments and the wider public. This is pitched as the International Institute for Sustainable Development in Winnipeg, Canada. Most scientists don't speak language that policy makers can understand, and vice versa. Justices and the colleges have proposed a goal of zero nascent degradation. Colleges like the idea of carbon neutrality. It is an easy understood targets that can help shape expectations and encourage action. If a soil on the brink, that may be too late. Several researchers are attention for the immediately creation of protected zones for engaged soil. One difficulty here is defining what these areas should conserve areas where the greatest soil diversity is present, or areas of unspoiled soils that could act as a future benchmark of quality. Whatever we do, if we want our soil to survive, we need to take attention now. Happiness is the ultimate goal because it is self-evidently good. If we ask why happiness matters, we can give no further external reason. It's just the obviously does matter. This pronouncement by Richard Leard, an economist and advocate of positive psychology, summarizes the beliefs of many people today. For Leard and others like him, it is obvious that the purpose of government is to promote a state of collective well-being, and the only question is how to achieve it. And here, positive psychology supported science that not only identifies what makes people happy, but also allows their happiness to be measured. Can show the way. Equipped with the science, they say governments can secure happiness in society in a way they never could in the past. It is astonishingly crude and simple-minded way of thinking, and for that's a very reason increasingly popular. Those who think in this way are obviously to the vast philosophical literature in which the meaning and the value of happiness have been explored and questioned, and writes as if nothing of any importance had been thought on the subject until it came to their attention. This was the philosopher Jeremy Bentham, 1748 into 1832, who was more than anyone else responsible for the development of this way of thinking. For Bentham, it was obvious that the human good consists of pleasure and the absence of pain. The Greek philosopher astronomy have identified happiness with self-realization in the 4th century BC, and the thinkers throughout the ages may have struggled to recognize the pursuit of happiness with other human values. But for Bentham, all these were mere metaphysics or fiction, without knowing anything much of him or the school of moral theory he established. Since they are by education and intellectual conviction illiterate in the history of ideas over advocate of positive psychology, following his tracks in rejecting as ultimate and irrelevant. Pretty much the entirely ethical reflection of human happiness to date. But as William Draft alludes in his recent book, the happiness industry is the view that happiness is the only self-evidence goods. Evidence is actually a way of eliminating moral inquiry. One of the virtues of this rich, lucid, and reasoning in book is that is a place the currents and cause of happiness in the well-defined historical framework. Rightly diverse begins his story with Bethlehem, nothing that he was far more than a philosopher. Diverse rights and the activities were those which we might now associated with public sector management and consultant. In the 1790s, he wrote to the Home Office suggesting that the departments of government be linked together through a set of convention institutes, and to the Bank of England with a design for a printing device that could produce unforgettable banknotes. He drew up plans for a fragile diamond to keep previously such as meats, fish, fruits, and vegetables fresh. He celebrated a design for a prison to be known as a penitentiary, in which prisoners would be kept in solitary confinement and were being invisible at all times to their guards, was very rarely adapted. Surprisingly, Davis does not discuss the fact that Benson means his plantation not just as a model prison, but also as an instrument of control that could be applied to schools and factories. Benson was also a pioneer of the science of happiness. If happiness is to be regarded as a science, it has to be measured, and Benson suggests the two ways in which this must be done, and viewing happiness as a complex of pleasurable sensations. He suggested that this must be quantified by measuring the human's pleasure rate. Alternatively, money could be used as a standard for qualification. If two different schools have the same price, it can be claimed that they produce the same quality of pleasure in the consumer. Benson was more attracted by the latter music measures by associating money so closely to inner experience. Benson sets the stage for the entertaining of psychological research and capitalism, and that would shape the business practices of the 20th century. The happiness industry describes how the projects of the science of the happiness has become integral to capitalism. We learn much that is interesting about how economic problems are being defined and treated as psychological maladies. In addition, and Davos shows how the belief that in states of pleasure and displeasure can be objectively measured has informed management studies and advertising in the tendency of thickness. A thinker such as J.B. Watson in the factor of behavioralism was that human beings could be shaped or manipulated by policymakers and managers. Watson they had to factor basis for his view of human action when he became president of the American Psychological Association in 1915, he had never ever studied a single human being. His research had been confined to experiments on what's right. Yes, Watson's reductive model is now widely applied with behavior change becoming the goal of governments. In Britain, a behavior insights team has been established by the government to study how people can be encouraged at minimum cost to the public purse to live in what are considered to be socially desirable ways. Modern industrial societies appear to lead to possibility of ever increasing happiness to motivate them in their labors. But whether this intellectual category, the idea that government should be responsible for promoting happiness is always a threat to human freedom.